The whisper started the moment Mayor Anya Sharma stepped through the gilded doorway of the Gilded Spoon. They weren't loud, not yet, but they were there, like a faint static in the otherwise pristine air. Anya had chosen this restaurant for a quiet, late dinner, a rare moment of peace after a bruising week of budget negotiations. She wasn't wearing a suit or a name tag, just a simple, elegant black dress. She had the presence of a woman who was used to commanding a room. But here, she just wanted to disappear into a corner booth and enjoy a plate of their signature sea bass. She was tired. She had earned this. A young host, a boy with slick back hair and practiced, empty smile, approached her. His eyes, however, seemed to slide right past her, as if she were a ghost in the opulent dining room. "Do you have a reservation?" he asked, the question laced with subtle, dismissive tone. "No, I don't," Anya replied calmly. "A table for one, please." He glanced around a half-empty restaurant, a theatrical show of consideration. "I'm afraid we're fully booked for the evening." Anya's smile tightened. "Really? It seems there are a few empty tables." She gestured to a row of vacant booths. The boy's empty smile hardened. "Those are reserved for our regulars, our patrons. Perhaps you could try a different establishment." The words hung in the air, a coded message that sliced through the pretense of politeness. A familiar weariness settled over Anya. This wasn't the first time she had faced this kind of subtle, insidious prejudice. But this was her city. She had walked through the fire to get to this point, to a position where her voice mattered, where her presence demanded respect. A man at a nearby table, a well-dressed couple with a small child, cleared his throat loudly and gave her a disapproving look. Another woman, with a tight bun and a judgmental purse, turned her head away with a huff. The tension in the room thickened. They were watching. They were judging. Anya felt a spike of frustration. She could feel the stares, the unspoken assumptions. She pulled out her phone and made a call, her voice low and firm. She was speaking to her chief of staff, giving a set of calm, precise instructions. As she spoke, a smug, satisfied smile began to spread across the host's face. He thought she was making a scene, calling her friends, perhaps. He had no idea. As Anya ended the call, she looked up to see a woman in a crisp white uniform, a woman with a kind face and a name tag that read Marie, approaching her from the kitchen. "I'm so sorry, ma'am," Marie said, her voice genuine and full concern. "Let me get you a table right away." She glared at the young host, her face a mask of disappointment. "We have plenty of room. Please, follow me." Anya followed Marie to a quiet corner booth. The whisper started again, this time with a new, more agitated note. People were starting to realize that something wasn't right. Anya sat down and watched as Marie pulled a chair over, a silent act of defiance. "What can I get for you, Mayor Sharma?" Marie asked, her voice soft and respectful. The host's face, a second ago filled with smug satisfaction, went ashen. The name Mayor hung in the air like a thunderclap. The whisper stopped. All eyes were on Anya now, a different kind of gaze, one of shock, embarrassment, and a dawning realization. The man who had cleared his throat looked at the floor. The woman with the tight bun now pretended to be engrossed in her phone. The restaurant fell silent. The quiet humiliation of the onlookers, a grim satisfaction for Anya. Her small win had a bitter aftertaste. The next morning, the violations escalated. She found a strange pair of shoes on her front porch, a woman's heels, size 7, pristine and out of place. Her mail was open, her clothes were misplaced, and the scent of a foreign perfume clung to her bedroom. It was more than a stranger's curiosity. It was a brazen violation. It felt like a subtle invasion, a statement of control. But from whom? She was invited to a community meeting about the budget. She walked in, ready to speak, but the room was already filled with the heavy weight of whispers. She looked around to see a few neighbors holding up signs that read, "Mayor of Denial." The woman from the restaurant, the one with the tight bun, was standing right in the front row, holding up a sign that read, "I saw her shouting." Anya's face went pale. The humiliation was a hot, scalding wave that washed over her. It was public and it was brutal. The paranoia started with the little things. She saw a drone hovering over her house. She saw a small child with a walkie-talkie in the bushes. She saw a neighbor who had never spoken to her before now wave with a strange, knowing smile. The gossip in her neighborhood felt like a living thing. She tried to go to a local coffee shop, and the owner, a man she had known for years, told her that he was not comfortable serving her. A shiver of disbelief ran through her. She was a pariah in her own city. Her small wins came in the form of a legal document. She found a loophole in the HOA bylaws that prevented the use of drones over private property. She had a restraining order filed against a neighbor with the tight bun. She felt a brief moment of satisfaction, a small sense of hope, but the hope was short-lived. The darker twist came in the middle of the night. She woke up to the sound of something in her bedroom. A small click. She sat up, her heart pounding in her chest. She saw a small box with a ribbon on her dresser. It was an antique music box that had belonged to her grandmother. The box was still there, but something was different. She had always kept a small, engraved locket inside, a precious family heirloom. The locket was gone. Her paranoia escalated into a full-blown fear. The next day, she found a small, handwritten note on her car. It was from the neighbor with the tight bun. "I'm sorry, Mayor," it read. "I know what you're doing. The lies would not save you." The note was a threat, a confirmation that her small wins had only made her more of a target. Her final, chilling cliffhanger came a few days later. She was in her study, going through her family records, searching for anything that could explain what was happening. She found a small, hidden compartment in the back of an old, dusty trunk. Inside, she found a single weathered piece of paper. It was a secret, handwritten letter from her grandfather to her father. A letter she had never seen before. She read the first line, and a cold dread washed over her. The deal with the neighborhood was always conditional. It read, "The land is not truly ours. It never was." The words blurred in front of her eyes. "The land is not truly ours. It never was." Anya read the letter again, hands trembling as if the paper were shaking itself. The ink was faded, the script slanted with urgency. Her grandfather's voice seemed to echo in the words, though he had been dead for decades. She forced herself to keep reading. The land was given on terms they never wanted made public. "We live here by grace, not by right. If they decide to revoke it, nothing we do will stop them. Keep quiet. Protect the family. Don't challenge the arrangement." Anya's mouth went dry. The neighborhood, the very people now weaponizing whispers, the very families now raising signs against her, had once been part of some hidden arrangement with her grandfather? The truth pressed on her like a heavy weight, a suffocating realization that maybe all her authority, her title, her office, was built on borrowed ground. A noise outside shattered her thoughts. Tires on gravel. She rose quickly, moving to the window, but by the time she looked, the street was empty. Only the faint sway of a streetlight suggested something had passed. Her phone buzzed. A message. Unknown number. "We told you to stay quiet. Now you've read too much." The blood drained from her face. The letter slipped from her fingers onto the desk. She scrambled to pick it up, stuffed it back into the trunk, and locked the study door. But she knew locks didn't mean safety anymore. That night, she couldn't sleep. Every creak of the house became a footstep. Every passing car became a threat. She lay awake until dawn bled into the horizon, her mind circling the same thought. What arrangement? Who controls the city? And why does it feel like they still own me? At City Hall the next morning, her staff avoided her eyes. Papers appeared on her desk without explanation, reports filled with half-truths and missing signatures. In the council chambers, Weller, the same councilman who had smirked when she protested her treatment at the diner, leaned back in his chair with a grin that reeked of victory. "Rough night, Mayor?" he asked under his breath. She ignored him, but her silence only seemed to fuel the whispers around the room. Later, Marie, the waitress who had helped her at the restaurant, slipped into her office with nervous eyes. She closed the door behind her and spoke in a low rush. "They've been talking about you, Mayor, about how you upset the balance. The spoon was just a test. They wanted to see if you backed down. But you didn't, and now," she faltered, glancing at the door. "Now they're escalating." "Who are they?" Anya asked sharply. Marie hesitated. "The families. Old names. People who've been here longer than the city charter. They don't appear in records, but they're everywhere. They control what happens here. Even the police answer to them. Anya's pulse quickened. And my grandfather? What deal did he make? Marie's eyes softened with pity. A deal to stay. A deal to keep your bloodline safe. As long as no one questioned the rules. Anya leaned back in her chair, the letter's words burning in her mind. Conditional. She realized then that her very existence in this city was seen as a violation of that deal. Her victory as mayor had broken something old, something fragile. That night, she returned home to find the shoes gone from her porch, replaced with something worse. On her doormat sat a child's drawing, scrawled in crayon. It depicted a stick figure woman with curly hair standing in front of a house. Flames consumed the roof. Next to it, in a shaky hand, were 3 words. We warned you. Her breath caught in her throat. She scanned the street, but the cul-de-sac was empty, the neighbors' curtains drawn tight. She rushed inside, locked every door, and dialed Detective Harris, the only ally she thought she had. His phone rang once, then disconnected. She tried again. This time, a cold, automated voice. This number is no longer in service. Her panic tipped into fury. They wanted her rattled. They wanted her broken. She wouldn't give them that. She spent the next day digging deeper. Archive after archive, dusty ledger after forgotten record. And then she found it, an old photograph from the 1940s. A ribbon-cutting ceremony for the founding of the city's business district. At the center stood her grandfather, smiling stiffly. To his right, Councilman Weller's father. To his left, the grandfather of the diner's manager. A triangle of power, cemented in black and white. But the detail that froze her blood wasn't the faces. It was a shadowy figure standing just behind them, blurred but deliberate, hand resting on her grandfather's shoulder. A man in a dark hat, face obscured. Written on the back, the witness. Anya traced a name with her finger. Who was the witness? Was he still alive? Or worse, was his influence still here, invisible but suffocating? That evening, she returned home to find her study ransacked, the trunk overturned, the letter gone, her chest hollowed out. They knew she had read it. They wanted her to know they could take anything, any time. A knock rattled her front door. Her heart hammered. She grabbed the nearest heavy object, a brass lamp, and crept forward. Mayor Sharma, a voice called, smooth and unhurried. Mayo, confident. We should talk. She flung the door open, lamp raised. On her porch stood a man she didn't recognize. Mid-40s, sharp suit, close-cropped hair peppered with gray. His eyes were cool, calculating, the kind that measured weakness before word was spoken. Who are you? She demanded. He smiled faintly. A representative. Let's leave it at that. His gaze flicked to the lamp in her hand. You won't need that. Not yet. I don't deal with ghosts, she snapped. Oh, I assure you, he said smoothly, stepping 1 foot over the threshold as if daring her to stop him. We are very real, and we've been patient. Too patient. You've upset traditions older than your title, older than your office. Do you think a sash and a seat at a table make you powerful? You've mistaken borrowed ground for your own. Anya's stomach twisted. What do you want? His smile widened. We want what was always ours. Compliance. Silence. Your family promised it, and now you've broken it. Before she could answer, he slipped a small box onto her hallway table. Black, polished, ominous. Consider this a reminder. Then he turned and walked into the night, his steps fading like smoke. With shaking hands, Anya opened the box. Inside lay her grandmother's missing locket, the one stolen from the music box. But it had been altered. The photo inside, once a portrait of her grandparents, was replaced. Now it showed her own face, scratched through with deep, angry lines. Her knees nearly buckled. The next morning, the newspaper headlines sealed her isolation. Mayor Sharma under investigation, accused of abuse of power. The article quoted anonymous sources, claiming she had harassed restaurant staff, threatened neighbors, and falsified documents. Each accusation was a distorted echo of truth, twisted into poison. At City Hall, her staff whispered behind her back. On the streets, strangers stared openly. Even Marie avoided her calls. And then, late that night, her phone buzzed again. Another unknown number. You're running out of time. Choose your loyalty, the city or your bloodline. Anya stared at the words, her chest tightening with dread. What choice was that? To sacrifice her family's safety for the city's truth, or betray her people to protect her name? Her answer didn't matter, because when she looked up from the message, she froze. In the reflection of her darkened window, she wasn't alone. Behind her, just at the edge of the glass, a man in a dark hat stood silently in her living room, his hand resting gently on her shoulder. The witness did not speak. His hand rested on her shoulder as if he had always been there, as if her living room belonged more to him than it ever did to her. Anya could not breathe. The reflection in the window was sharper than the figure itself, as though the glass chose to reveal what her eyes alone could not. She spun around, lamp still in her hand, but the room was empty, except for faint indentation on the carpet, where a pair of shoes had stood only seconds before. She staggered backward, nearly tripping over her own coffee table, heart racing so violently she thought it might split her chest. The witness was real, or real enough. He was no longer a blurred figure in a photograph. He was here inside her home, touching her as though to remind her that she was marked. Her phone buzzed again on the table. This time it wasn't a text. It was a video message. She hesitated before opening it, every muscle in her body screaming not to. But hesitation was weakness, and weakness was what they wanted. She pressed play. The screen showed grainy footage of her parents' old house, the one they had retired to years ago, miles outside the city. Her mother appeared at the window, watering plants, oblivious the camera pointed at her. Then the frame shifted, tilting toward the driveway, where a figure in a dark hat stood, unmoving, watching. The video ended abruptly with a single word flashing across the screen. Obedience. Anya's breath caught in her throat. They weren't just threatening her. They were reaching across time, across distance, into the fragile life her family thought was safe. She wanted to call her mother immediately, but her instincts told her that any move, any call would be tracked, intercepted, punished. Instead, she sat in the dim glow of her living room, trembling, trying to think like them, try to anticipate what compliance even meant in a world where every step seemed already decided. The next day, she forced herself back into City Hall. To disappear would be surrender. Her office door was ajar when she arrived, and a stack of files sat neatly on her desk. Each file was labeled with the name of a person she had trusted: staffers, donors, allies. Inside each folder was damning material: financial irregularities, personal secrets, photographs taken without their knowledge. Some were lies, some half-truths, some impossibly invasive truths. At the bottom of the stack was a plain envelope addressed to her. She opened it. Inside was a single sheet of paper. Choose one. No explanation. No instructions. Just the implication. Sacrifice one of them. Expose them, betray them, or risk them all. She felt her stomach twist into knots. The families were not simply attacking her. They were demanding complicity, forcing her to play their game. If she chose, she became one of them. If she refused, she became their prey. Her head throbbed with the weight of it. She locked the files in her desk drawer, though she knew locks meant nothing. She needed answers. Real answers. And that meant she had to go deeper into her grandfather's past, deeper than the letter or the photograph had revealed. That night she drove to the outskirts of the city, to the old Sharma family estate, abandoned for decades. The house leaned into itself with age, windows dark and shattered, the air heavy with mildew and memory. She carried a flashlight, her beam cutting through the dust as she searched room after room for some clue, some forgotten piece of the arrangement. In the cellar she found it, a chest identical in design to the trunk that had once held the letter. This one was locked, but the rust was brittle. She pried it open with a piece of broken pipe. Inside were ledgers, thick with handwritten notes and signatures. Page after page listed payments, tributes, she realized, made to the families. Land deeds signed not by the city, but by a single name repeated over and over. The witness. Her skin prickled. The witness wasn't just a figure. He was the seal, the enforcer, the silent signature behind every bargain. If her grandfather had paid tribute, then his authority had never been real. It had always been rented. A noise behind her made her whirl around. A figure stood at the top of the cellar stairs. Her flashlight beam landed on him. Councilman Weller. "Looking for ghosts?" he asked, voice dripping with smugness. Anya's throat tightened. "You're a part of this." He chuckled darkly. "Part? Mayor, there is no part. There's only belonging. You either belong to the families, or you don't belong at all. And you," he gestured toward the ledgers, "you've already read too much. There's no going back now." She tightened her grip on the flashlight. "What happens if I refuse?" His smile widened. "Refuse? You think refusal is an option? The witness has already chosen you." Her pulse raced. "Chosen me for what?" "To remind you," Weller said softly, almost reverently, "that promises outlive the people who make them. Your bloodline promised silence. You broke it, and blood pays for blood." Before she could answer, he stepped back into the shadows and vanished, leaving her alone with the ledgers and the suffocating knowledge that she had been marked since birth. She left the estate in a daze, the words echoing in her skull. Blood pays for blood. When she reached her car, another envelope waited on the windshield. Inside was a photograph, her parents again, this time standing outside their church. But in the corner of the frame, half hidden behind a tree, was the man in the hat, watching, always watching. By the time she returned home, she was shaking. She sat at her desk, pulled out the files they had left her, and stared at the names of her allies. Choose one. The families had set the rules. If she didn't pick, they would, and she had already seen how precise their reach was. The following morning, the scandal escalated. Newspapers splashed with stories about a staffer allegedly embezzling campaign funds. One of the very staffers whose file had been on her desk. She hadn't chosen, but the families had chosen for her. They were showing her the cost of hesitation. Her phone buzzed again. Another message, this time an audio recording. Her grandfather's voice. Faded, grainy, but unmistakable. "We promise them loyalty. We promise them silence. Break it, and the city will consume you." Anya's hands shook so violently she dropped the phone. How could they have his voice? He had been dead for 30 years. Unless he had left it willingly. Unless he, too, had lived under their leash. Yours. It never was. Choose, and you will live. Refuse, and you're lying in tonight. The screen went black. Anya sat frozen, the weight of a decision pressing down on her like a grave. Somewhere in the house, a floorboard creaked. She wasn't alone. The witness was here, waiting for her choice. Sleep abandoned her completely. Every night the house creaked with phantom footsteps. Every shadow felt alive. And then came the dreams. Dreams of the witness standing at the foot of her bed, faceless beneath his hat, his hand reaching toward her as if to claim her. She would wake gasping, the scent of old smoke lingering in her room. Days blurred. At council meetings, her colleagues spoke in careful tones, their eyes darting toward corners of the chamber as if someone else were always listening. Marie reappeared once, slipping her a folded napkin during a public event. Written in hurried scrawl were 3 words, "Meet me midnight." Anya followed the instruction. At midnight, she met Marie in the alley behind a gilded spoon. The waitress looked older, haggard, her hands trembling as she clutched a cigarette. "They won't stop, Mayor," she whispered. "You can't win, but maybe you can survive." "How?" Anya pressed. Marie glanced around nervously. "There's someone else. Someone who walked away once. They call him the Keeper. He knows the truth about the witness. But he won't help you unless—" She broke off, eyes wide. "Unless what?" Marie's voice cracked. "Unless you prove you're willing to sacrifice. That's the only language they understand." Before Anya could ask more, Marie's gaze darted past her, and she fled into the night, leaving only the echo of her warning. Anya stood frozen, the words pounding in her skull. Prove you're willing to sacrifice. Was that the family's final test? Or was Marie leading her into another trap? When she returned home, another gift awaited her on the table. The same black box, this time containing a single sheet of paper. On it, written in sharp, deliberate strokes, were two names. Her mother, her chief of staff. Beneath them, the same command. Choose one. Her hands trembled so violently she nearly tore the paper in half. They had stripped everything else away, her privacy, her authority, her allies. Now they were forcing her to pick between blood and loyalty, between family and office. But as her eyes blurred with tears, she noticed something new on the page. At the bottom corner, barely visible, was a mark she hadn't seen before. Not a signature, but a symbol, a small, circular emblem with an eye inside. The witness's seal. It was then she realized a truth that hollowed her to core. The families were not just enforcing silence. They were curating loyalty, shaping every leader, every generation, through fear and forced sacrifice. Her grandfather hadn't merely submitted. He had participated, and now it was her turn. Her phone buzzed again. A video call this time. She answered, unable to stop herself. The screen filled with static before resolving into the face of the man in the dark hat, the witness. For the first time, she saw his eyes cold, endless, as if carved from shadow itself. His voice was low, resonant, more felt than heard. The city is not. Anya's hands clenched into fists, the paper trembling between her fingers. Choose one. The words mocked her, echoing in her mind like a verdict she hadn't agreed to. Her mother, her chief of staff. Two lives weighed against her silence, her compliance, her bloodline centuries-old bargain with shadows. The creak above her grew louder. Whoever, or whatever, was in her home was moving deliberately, one footstep at a time, circling. She gripped the brass lamp again, her pulse hammering in her ears. She wasn't just being asked to choose. She was being tested. Her phone buzzed again. Another video. She opened it, because to ignore them was to hand them control. This time, the footage showed her mother asleep in bed. The camera angle was from inside the room. Someone had been there, standing silently over her. The lens zoomed in on her chest, rising and falling, peaceful, unaware. Then the screen cut to black, and a single phrase appeared in blood-red text. She sleeps because we allow it. Anya's stomach twisted. Rage burned away the paralysis. They wanted her scared, compliant, broken. But she wasn't her grandfather. She wasn't going to bow to ghosts. She tore the paper with the names into shreds and let them fall to the floor. Her voice was shaking, but it was hers, steady in the silence. I don't choose. Not this time. The room seemed to shiver. The house groaned as if it had heard her defiance. The footsteps stopped. And then, as though the air itself was a curtain being pulled back, the witness appeared. He stood at the edge of the hallway, had shadow in his eyes, coat draped like smoke. This time, there was no blur, no half-glimpse. He was flesh, bone presence. Real. You misunderstand. His voice rolled, low and resonant. There's no choice but choice. Refusal is a choice. And every choice has its price. Anya's grip tightened on the lamp. Then let me pay mine. The witness tilted his head, studying her, as though amused at her audacity. Your grandfather begged. Your father hid. You fight. That is why the families both fear you and crave you. They want your silence. He stepped closer, boots echoing across the hardwood floor. I want your surrender. Her breath caught, but she raised the lamp like a weapon. Then you'll have to take it. The witness's mouth curled into something like a smile, and then the lights flickered and died. Darkness swallowed the house. Anya's pulse roared in her ears as she swung the lamp, hitting nothing but air. A whisper brushed against her ear. Blood pays for blood. She spun wildly, but the whisper came again, this time from the opposite side. But sacrifices can rewrite debts. Her mind caught on the word. Rewrite. Not erase, not escape. Rewrite. Was this her chance? Her phone lit up suddenly on the table, glowing like an omen. Another message. This time not a command. A location. Coordinates. Midnight. Her instinct screamed it was a trap, but something deeper told her this was the keeper. The name Marie had whispered. The one who had walked away. The one who might hold the truth. Anya drove. The city blurred past, neon lights bleeding into darkness as she followed the coordinates out to the edge of the river. There, in an abandoned warehouse, a single lantern burned. A man waited inside. Older, gaunt, eyes sharp as glass. His hands trembled, but his voice carried weight. "You must be the mayor. Are you the keeper?" He nodded once. "I kept what others tried to bury. Records. Names. The families think they control everything, but even shadows leave footprints." He handed her a bundle of documents, yellowed with age. "This is the witness's truth. He is not immortal. He is not supernatural. He is a mantle, passed down generation to generation, a role played by men who enforce loyalty through fear. The hat hides a man. The man hides a system." Anya's heart pounded. "So if I expose them, they'll kill you before the sun rises." The keeper's eyes burned into hers. "But if you play their game, if you choose what to sacrifice, you can buy enough time to break the chain. The witness isn't one man. He's a weapon, and weapons can be turned." The floor groaned. Shadows shifted at the edges of the warehouse. The keeper's face blanched. "They followed you." Figures stepped from the darkness. 3 men in suits, hats shadowing their faces. Behind them, the witness himself, silent, watching. "You've learned too much," the witness intoned. The keeper shoved the bundle into her hands. "Run." The men lunged. The keeper met them with a rusted pipe, swinging wildly, buying her seconds, maybe less. Anya sprinted for the exit, clutching the documents to her chest as gunfire cracked the air. She didn't look back. She couldn't. She drove until dawn, until the city skyline rose like a jagged crown against the light. She parked outside City Hall, hands trembling as she opened the bundle. Inside were contracts, signatures, photographs, proof of the family's existence, proof of the witness's mantle, proof of the deal her grandfather had signed. But at the very bottom was the page that made her blood run cold. A list, a succession, names crossed out one by one until the final line. Her name, Anya Sharma. Her breath hitched. They had chosen her long before she had chosen politics. The families hadn't simply allowed her to rise. They had engineered it. She wasn't their enemy. She was their heir. The door to her office clicked open. Councilman Weller stepped inside, hands in his pockets, smirk plastered across his face. "You've been busy," he said casually, glancing at the spread of papers. "But now you see, don't you? There's no war to fight, only a throne to inherit." Her throat went dry. "You expect me to join you?" Weller's smile deepened. "You already have. Every scandal, every whisper, every humiliation. It was your initiation. The witness doesn't ask. The witness chooses." Anya's chest tightened. The words she wanted to say tangled in her throat. Denial, fury, defiance. But in the silence that followed, she heard only her grandfather's voice, grainy and resigned. "We promised him loyalty. We promised him silence." Weller leaned closer, whispering, "It's your turn now. The city is waiting." And in that moment, she understood the true horror. The families didn't want her silence. They wanted her voice. They wanted her to become the very monster she had been fighting. Her phone buzzed on the desk. Another message. She opened it with numb fingers. A single sentence glared back at her. "Welcome, witness." Anya closed her eyes. Her breath shook, and when she opened them again, the reflection in the office window showed her wearing the hat. And that is where we leave the story. Thank you so much for watching till the end. Now, let me ask you, if you were in Anya's position, would you have surrendered to families to protect your loved ones, or would you have risked everything to break the cycle? Drop your answer in the comments. I'd love to read your thoughts. And don't forget, like this video, share it with someone who loves psychological suspense, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next chilling story.